Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be starting in approximately 2 minutes. Good afternoon, and welcome to the National Association for Court Management webinar, sponsored and presented by Tyler Technologies. From crisis to convenience, the future of traffic courts in post-pandemic world. My name is Charleston Carter, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Civil Division for the Superior Court in Washington, D.C. I'm a member of NACM Board of Directors and serve as the Chair for the Communications Committee. It is indeed a pleasure to present and introduce our presenter today, no other than Mr. Riley Miles. Mr. Miles is the General Manager for the Encode Court Product Suite at Tyler Technologies. Mr. Miles joined Tyler Technologies in 2020, but has been working on case management for approximately 16 years. He has done everything from project management to product management. He has a true passion for justice community and is eager to find innovative ways to help jurisdictions create stronger, fair, and more accessible court technology. Before we start, I would like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. The presentation is approximately 1 hour long, and we'll be recording today's webinar. The webinar will be available for attendees after the presentation and for members of NACM on the website. Please take a few moments to complete the survey after the webinar. If you're joining the webinar today on your computer, please submit questions to Mr. Miles throughout the presentation by typing your question in chat. Mr. Jeff Chappell, who's the communications chair, will be moderating the questions or monitoring them, and he will address the questions at the end of the presentation. If you attended the webinar by telephone, you may email your question or questions to nacmnet.org. That's NACM@NACMnet.org, and your questions will be answered. At this given time, let us welcome Mr. Miles.
Charleston, thank you so much. What a beautiful voice. I could listen. I hope you will present next time. I'll send you the slides and you just go through them for us. My goodness, I could listen to you all day. Thank you. Hey, and if anyone wants to have an experiment in making yourself uncomfortable, just turn on a webcam 3 minutes before a national webinar and just stand there and look at the camera. It certainly can add to the nerves of what's going on there. So I hope you'll bear with me today. I'm excited to be with you all. As Charleston mentioned, I've been doing case management system for over 16 years and absolutely love it. Today, for our presentation, I want to focus in on something that was coined by Satya Nadella, the chief executive at Microsoft. In a talk that Satya was giving in 2020, this alliteration was coined, and they talked about respond, recover, and reimagine. And I think the alliteration is really applicable to what we're doing, not only at Tyler, but really with courts across the country. The respond phase is where we spent most of last year. Across the country, we engaged in crisis management methods like enabling a remote workforce and shutting down courthouses. We tried to become overnight experts on infectious disease spread for facilities management and workforce policies. It was a really uncertain time, but I am proud of the way that we adjusted to the change. I'm also extremely impressed at the response that our clients had to the ever changing world. As we approach the end of last year and really into this spring, we entered into the recovery phase. We are optimistic and looking forward to what the future holds. We're hopeful that we will not have to revert back to the measures that were taken last year. But if we do, if something like that were to happen again, we know that we have those policies in place and we can move quickly. Experience is a valuable thing. We may have different recovery plans and timelines, but I think we can all agree it is much more incremental than the respond phase. Again, I look at the recovery effort that you all have extended, and I'm truly humbled by the success you've had in doing so. Now, as we talk about reimagine, it's a bit of a misnomer using the term phase as we think simply moving from one phase to another. The reimagine phase began during recovery. It had already begun, and it's really based on how idealistic a leader is on behalf of their organization. This is the phase when we determine which of the short-term operational fixes have long-term potential. Our progress in the reimagine phase will largely tie back to what we did in the recovery phase and will help fuel new methods and approaches. You have all seen leaders emerge in your organizations, and folks are thinking of old things in new ways. It is really inspiring to see the innovation that has taken place, and I truly look forward to continuing to push that innovation along. When I look at the pandemic, if we were to pull something good and something positive from it, I think one of the things is that it helped us fast forward years into the future. I think perhaps even more than a decade. As a society, we used to use web connectivity tools in a rare occasion, and we're kind of opposed to jumping online. Now we use them like never before. Video conferencing, online payments, and interaction, we've not only accepted, but now we've embraced the reach of the web. And I think this online webinar is appropriate to highlight that piece. Now, right now, is our opportunity to harness this adoption and really enhance the way that we do business and the way that court can be conducted. Today, I want to speak at a really high level about some of the ideas that we have on how to reimagine your court right now and in the future. To begin, let's talk about moving from crisis to convenience. COVID forced us all to do a lot of what we were hesitant to do before. In many jurisdictions, it literally kept us from going to the courthouse. No one could have predicted what happened last year. But as a vendor and as your partner, we were already building tools in the anticipation that something like that could occur. The pandemic accelerated our efforts and, to a large extent, the adoption of the tools that we were already putting together. Last year, more than ever, we were all forced to get better at connecting remotely. Some have gotten so good at it, they plan to never return to the traditional office. And I imagine some of you are seeing that now. For all of us, wherever we were, whatever we were doing, the crisis was very real. Many courts were not prepared to handle a crisis like COVID. Some courts were forced to close completely. This resulted in extensions having to be issued because no one could see the judge. And in many cases, staff did not have access to the software that they needed in order to process things completely. A sample that was taken of municipal courts across the country showed an average of 29% fewer citations being issued, with some jurisdictions seeing as much as 49% fewer citations. It had a major impact, both psychological, health-wise, physical, and also financial. But as we are now in the recovery and the reimagine phase, we have an opportunity to really focus in on the convenience factor. As one of the vendors out there and as your partner, we really want to enable courts to conduct not just hearings, but almost all facets of the case online to help transform the convenience for the citizens. COVID simply gave us a really hard push into the future. Utilizing the reach of the web and the adoption of these tools, we're helping to extend the courtroom to really improbable places. This is all in an effort to increase access to justice for everyone. And I think that's an initiative we've all had for a long time. As we focus in on convenience, I want to share a story that came to mind, and this has to do with my first interaction with the courts. When I was 16 years old, I was driving my friend and I to football practice. It was 5:50 a.m. and practice started at 6 o'clock. From where I was driving, we were 15 minutes away. My poor little 16-year-old brain knew that in order to avoid running extra sprints or having to do up downs during scrimmage, I needed to go faster than the speed limit to get there on time. So off I went, speeding along to football practice. At about 5:53 a.m., Officer Tom Jensen pulled out of his driveway, headed to work that morning. I passed right in front of him, going about 15 miles an hour over the speed limit. Now, I do want to insert the caveat here that this is the one and only time that I've been pulled over for something like this. It seemed like an eternity, but I'm sure it was only a second or two before Officer Jensen turned on his lights and proceeded to pull me over. I still remember my hands shaking when I handed over my license and registration. Long story short, my friend and I both ran an extra mile during practice, and I did more up downs than I care to remember. On top of that, I had to go home and tell my dad what had happened, and that really was probably the worst part. He told me that I was going to learn a valuable lesson. I was going to figure out how to navigate the next steps of the judicial process entirely on my own. The single point of advice that my dad gave me was, and I quote, "Don't you dare miss that court date." I went to court on the designated date, dressed in a shirt and tie. I again missed football practice and received additional sprints as a penalty. I was ordered to pay a $164 fine, which wiped out the lawn mowing savings that I had accrued that summer. And I remember my hands shaking, both in fear and frustration, again, shaky hands, as I paid the clerk at the window in order to resolve the case. I share this story because I think all of us can relate to that sentiment. Above all else, don't you dare miss that court date. It still rings in my ears. I think in general, society recognizes that sentiment as well. We, as court staff and as administrators, we understand the challenges. There's a plethora of circumstances that can force defendants into really tight situations. Consider the single working parent when confronted with the prospect of having to choose between work or court. That can be a really hard decision. Lack of transportation. For some, it's just physically difficult, sometimes impossible to get there. I guess nothing's impossible, but close to or next to or seemingly impossible. Also, remote or rural areas, proximity to justice can be a barrier for so many. There are probably hundreds of scenarios that present difficult choices for defendants. But it all comes back to a simple fact. Access to justice can be easier than it has been in the past. Today, I want to explore some of the ideas that you can look for as you look to consider enhancing the court experience. At a general level, there are so many tools available from many vendors that can assist in reimagining the court. First, let's talk web conferencing tools, or as we call one of our internal products, Virtual Court. When evaluating web conference solutions, I think it's important to look for something that was designed for the justice community. Some tools may work okay for certain situations, but by and large, there are gaps in the service that these pieces can provide. Tools that were built with your court in mind will cover all the bases and will help push the envelope on efficiency. As we know, each court is unique and has different requirements for scalability. Small courts, medium, large courts, the system should be able to work with all sizes equally and not have issues with connectivity or with operation. One of the most important factors, I think, should be ease of use. As long as participants have a reliable connection and a webcam, they should be able to connect, and that should go seamlessly. I believe last year, COVID overshadowed a security pandemic that is quickly sweeping through the country. Agencies across the country have seen bad actors take control of their system with ransomware and viruses. As you look at systems, consider the platforms upon which they are built. Security is as important now as it has ever been. And as we keep security in mind, we'll be able to focus on providing a better level of service, but reducing the risk that we have to our systems. Amazon Web Services, or AWS, is a powerful and secure platform and is really our preferred choice when building our solutions at Tyler. Finally, integration with your case management system is a huge value. When the two are tied together, the system can support real-time sharing of documents and case information. It can enable defendants to update contact information. It can streamline the whole court experience for staff who can remain focused on one system as opposed to multiple windows. You can also imagine some of the convenience benefits that having a tool like this offers to the court. Reducing failure to appear rates, increasing compliance, shortening the lines in the lobby, creating a referenceable record of the court proceedings that you can go back and review after the fact. It can also free up staff to focus on other responsibilities and duties. Just to help give you an idea of what is possible, I want to share just a couple of examples from our client base that were using virtual court to expand what they could do and how it also helped them during the pandemic. I'd like to start with an example from Judge Eric Bain in Del Rio, Texas, in a way that they really reimagined the court in the community. Judge Bain and his staff wanted the ability to take the courthouse out to the community as a convenience piece for the defendants that they serve. Judge Bain and his staff had a wonderful idea. They were taking virtual court out in a laptop that was connected to the internet and connected back to their system at the courthouse. They were taking that out to these community centers, and at a predetermined date and time, just a single clerk could go with a laptop, show up at the community center, and then people that needed to, or defendants that needed to come in and resolve cases could do that right there. They could meet with the judge, they could proceed through an online hearing, they could take the case all the way to resolution, and even make their payments while in that small community center setting. I think this is a wonderful, just pioneer of an idea that's being used there in Del Rio. And I think many of us could take from that example and extend the courthouse beyond just those walls. Another example comes from Jessica Stevens, a court administrator in the town of Little Elm, Texas. Jessica says, virtual court has kept us afloat this year. Our town buildings have been closed to the public since March of last year and will remain closed until the 1st of June. Without virtual court, we would not have been able to allow defendants to safely speak with the judge about their cases. Going forward, virtual court will allow those defendants who are part of the vulnerable populations to continue to resolve their cases safely from the comfort of their own home. In an unimaginable situation where continuing to do business seemed almost impossible, virtual court offered a simple and safe solution for both the court and court participants. I think it's a wonderful example of online tools helping during COVID, but also looking to the future. Another example comes from Don Wilcox, a court administrator in Portage, Wisconsin. Virtual court has made appearing for court more convenient for people. It is so much easier taking a 15-minute break from work than having to take off and attend in person. We are located by an interstate, and quite a few people who are issued citations are from a distance away, even out of state. This makes it easier for them to contest it without having to travel several hours. We also had a situation where our judge had to be out of state for a month. Instead of getting a substitute judge, we were still able to offer virtual court and have our judge available. I would highly recommend it to anyone interested. I think these are great examples and ones that we can relate to. So many of our jurisdictions are in high traffic, high transit areas. And what judge out there wouldn't be excited about being able to log in while they're on vacation? I say that jokingly, but the reach of the web helps us stay connected in ways that before we had not imagined. One final example comes from Greg Nickel, a court administrator in Newton, Kansas. Virtual court has opened a world of options that just didn't exist before. In the past, we have been rigidly stuck with in-person appearances. These pack the courtroom. They also create hardships for defendants, which hit certain defendants harder than others. This is especially true for defendants in lower socioeconomic situations. This has become a huge concern to the judiciary across the nation. As an example, defendants who live hours away and need to resolve a suspended license ticket are trapped. Their license is probably suspended because they didn't have money to pay for a speeding ticket. They probably don't have money for a roadworthy car, even if their license was valid. Many of these defendants are left to choose between a no-show warrant versus taking a chance by driving to court. Virtual court has given the court better options. Now, I know that's focusing in on virtual court because that's one of our solutions, but I think the principles still apply. Taking the reach of the web and extending that to our defendants can be a huge value and an extreme benefit, not only to them, but also to the court. Next, I want to talk about how we can resolve cases more quickly and efficiently. Again, using tools that are out there from many vendors and many sources. As we talk about this, consider how we could, by using some of these tools, you could efficiently manage cases, easily process payments within a single system, create the exact reports and distribution that may be needed, update multiple cases at once, use the latest scheduling and docketing tools that are out there, manage warrants and dispositions in an online way, stay connected with other departments. All of these are sub-themes that will be throughout this section of the presentation. From the moment that a case lands on your docket until the final payment is received, there really are so many tools that are available to help resolve the cases quickly and effectively. Here are some ideas on what to be looking for as you evaluate moving your court to the next level. At Tyler, we call these our case resolution tools, but the principles apply regardless of the technologies or the vendors that you may choose. Consider online case resolution. When we were in crisis, this became imperative. If courts didn't want to postpone indefinitely, they needed a solution to empower the defendant. As we move forward, this level of convenience can transform the experience for defendants as a whole. They should be able to, in these systems, I think, or we should be able to, all of us, we should be able to accept full and partial online payments, allow defendants to request programs online, give the option to request court dates online, also be able to accept uploaded documentation. These are all features that you can consider when you start looking at these tools. Together, we can also make coming to the courthouse to submit or access documents and public records a thing of the past. With online case records, we can put the information that the public needs right at their fingertips. Consider the following scenarios. Making case information searchable online. It seems pretty straightforward, but how much of our time is spent looking that information up and then trying to get that out? If defendants and attorneys can log in and access information online, get that securely and download it, what an added feature enhancement that is for them. Giving the public a live view of the court docket. How many phone calls do we take in the courts asking when's my next court appearance? When should I show up? If they were able to go and view that online or be able to consume that in a way that might pop up on their phone or their device, what an added benefit that is for them. make viewing case documents easy. I think the days of having to come to the courthouse, ask for a printed copy of the document, hopefully are moving into the past. I think for all of our sakes, if we can push that out to the web and give that, put that in the hands of the defendants and the attorneys, I think it'll be a huge value and a convenience add for them, but will also free us up to do much more important things there at the courthouse. Also being able to accept those e-file documents from attorneys, another facet that is so important, as opposed to having to manage those one at a time or from a queue or a line that's showing up at the clerk's desk that day. We can accept those electronically, and I think we should. Accessibility, I think this is a huge piece. Enhancing our courts to this level of convenience can really help our bottom line also, without the burden of having to take time, or not only our bottom line, but also the customer or the defendants, without the burden of having to take time off work or stand in line for an undetermined amount of time. Defendants are encouraged to take care of their obligations at home or on their own time. If they wanted to make one of those payments and they got off work at 8 p.m. that night, it sure would be nice to be able to make that payment at 8:30 or 9 or even midnight if that was the case. Being able to accept those payments by text or phone could also be an added feature enhancement that we may not have considered. Also, allowing those payments to be made at an offsite kiosk or store. There's so many vendors, Tyler Technologies included, that offer these services and features to be able to go and make those payments at a Walmart or at a kiosk that's been set up somewhere that has a payment desk. Giving defendants the options to e-file is one that we spoke of before, but again, it applies here. Not everything can necessarily happen during those typical court hours. And it would be a nice value add to be able to accept those filings in off hours. Also, just being able to resolve those traffic ticket disputes, being able to dispute something online, to initiate that process, and even to go through it in an entirely online experience. How valuable will that be for some of these participants, and how convenient that will be for them and their families? As we get closer to the end here, I want to focus in on engagement. Modern day tools really help us stay up to speed on the important events in our lives. Consider your phone. How many times a day do you pull that phone up and reference something on there? It's interesting. There was a study that was done on that vibration that you feel in your pocket when your phone goes off. Has anybody out there ever had the experience where your mind says, hey, your phone's vibrating in your pocket, hurry and pick that up? You reach down, reach into your pocket, and your phone's not there. Well, the study shows that this is kind of tied to the chemicals in our brain, and some of those endorphins that we get when that phone goes off, they kick off and your brain says, hey, I want to feel that again. Go check that pocket. We all have that check. We all have that device. We all have some type of connectivity that we rely on. Court dates, I think, should really be no exception. I wonder if by using these tools, and I'm going to get really optimistic here, by using these tools, is there a future in which failure to appear cease to exist? I'm sure that's extremely wishful thinking, but the reality is we do have the tools. They exist now to help defendants make those dates and to help keep us all on track. Consider the options when you're looking at some of these automated tools. Will the system, or does the system, have connectivity to a service that can send automated phone and text notifications? Can those be set up in a way that they can send something out the week before the court date, 3 days before the court date, 2 days before the court date, the day before, make a phone call and a text message and an email, and try and make sure that these defendants are as aware as they can be of that upcoming important date, again, in an effort to not miss that court date. Also, consider whether or not the IVR service is available, or interactive voice response. Can defendants call in? Can they call into a number where you don't have to pick up the phone and respond to those questions, where the phone tree or the phone process can walk them through, can hear their voice, can respond to those questions or indicators, and walk them to the information that they need without you having to take that time? These are just some of the tools that are out there that can really help enhance the experience, not only for the defendant, but also for the courts. As we bring this to a close, just before we get into some of the announcements, I really hope that this discussion has spawned some ideas for you with regards to your jurisdiction specifically. I hope that there's something that has popped up that maybe you hadn't considered before, or maybe it's something you were thinking about that you thought, man, if I could just get more information on that, that would be great. I can't say it enough. There's so many tools available to us now, and the adoption of these tools is at an all-time high. We're not the only vendor that provide these. There's many vendors out there that do similar things. I think now is the time, as the next generation makes their way through society, these tools, they're going to push us to use these tools and to more emerging technologies. I'm truly excited at what the future holds. I'm excited about the technologies that we have. I'm excited about being able to work with the staff here at Tyler Technologies every day, but also with the courts and with the staff that we have as our clients. It's so valuable to us to hear your feedback and your ideas on where the technology can go. And we look forward to hearing those ideas in the coming weeks. I also hope to be able to work with you personally along the way. I know our teams are always invested in cultivating those relationships and getting to know more about you and what you do. I look forward to increasing those relationships down the road. I want, just with any of these presentations, we always have some type of call to action, right? I hope that if you're able to attend the conference that's coming up in the next couple of weeks in sunny San Diego, if you're there and if you would like to hear more about the solutions that we offer at Tyler Technologies, please stop by our booth. Stop by any of the folks that are there. They would be more than happy to walk you through and show you the details of the applications that we have and answer the questions that you may have pop up. If you're unable to attend the conference and you'd simply like more of a one-on-one setting, we can meet with you online, or you can schedule a demo, whether it's online or on site, using the URL that's here on this slide. I definitely encourage you to reach out to us, encourage you to whether it's to us or to another vendor, encourage you to go out and explore the tools that are out there. As you think of ideas, as you consider moving your court to some type of next step when it comes to convenience, consider looking us up and asking us questions or asking for feedback. If you have ideas on how to push things forward or how technology may be able to help you, please fire those off. We would love to collaborate on those ideas and see if there's anything that we could do to help along the way. At this point, we'll open it up now. We've got Jeff, our esteemed Q&A monitor, also court administrator in City of O'Fallon, right, Jeff?
Yes, and a customer of Tyler. So
fantastic. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your partnership.
So we do have a few questions, Riley. First one that came in was, how is virtual court different from the Zoom platform we're already using?
Great question. In the most simple terms, Zoom is just a video conferencing tool, and we're using it right now. We're using it today. There's definitely a value in what Zoom brings. It connects us. It can show us face to face. We can meet together, and there's a huge value there. When it comes to virtual court, we've taken that and extended it. The video conferencing piece is just a small part of what virtual court offers. Virtual court really allows you to have the entire case process done completely online. So defendants can log in, they can interact with the judge can interact with defendants. We have waiting rooms, we have breakout rooms to where if the defendant needs to work with a prosecutor, they can move into the breakout room, work with the prosecutor, and then be ushered back in to the online courtroom setting. More importantly, though, it also works in conjunction and hand in hand with the case management system. So as you update statuses, if you kick off workflows, if there's documents that need to be generated and shared with the defendants at that time, it's all contained within that session. We're also recording it, monitoring it, packaging it up so that that entire court session can be reviewed and can be saved and stored if you want to retain that for the future. So those are some of the differences between virtual court and Zoom.
I do have a couple more, but I did want to remind all the panelists that may, or not panelists, attendees that may have gotten here after we started, please put your questions in the Q&A or the chat, and they will be brought over here. Next question I had was, you mentioned accepting documents and stuff, but do you have the option for like fillable forms for signatures, stuff of that nature?
Yes, in fact, at Tyler Technologies, we do. So one, we have those document templates that will pre-populate information on those forms as they're generated. And as we move into the future, virtual court also allows defendants to go in and sign those documents and have that all happen online without them having to come in and interact with the court there. So we continue to push and expand what's available there, and will continue to make enhancements as we move forward.
Perfect. We got several that are coming in here, so that'll be great for you here. Can you explain the benefit of getting a system like this that has all these features integrated into the CMS version of our piecemeal approach, i.e. cheaper now, but takes more time versus getting a new system?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I encourage, it's not one that I take lightly. I know that not everyone can go out and just purchase a wholesale new system for the court. I know that you have bits and pieces that you've put together already that are working for you and that are important. I would say, look at what that next step can be. Just like with what we do in our goals at Tyler Technologies from a business perspective, we're always setting goals on where we can get with technology, where we can push. What is that next step? And I would say, if you put a plan together of what those incremental steps are, prioritize what could enhance your court significantly, what might have the biggest impact. It may be that if you just were to sign up with an IVR system, maybe that would reduce some of the time and free up staff enough to go and do other things. It may be that if you were to go with some type of video or web conferencing tool, you would be able to extend the convenience factor. So knowing that it doesn't always have to tie into what you already have, the bits and pieces that you could put in place, I think, have value today. Now, there's also bits and pieces that could weave themselves into what you've already put together. So if a product has an API or a programming interface, you could essentially, if the city or if your jurisdiction has a web developer or service developer, you could tie some of that into what you already have. So there's lots of different ways that you could go about it. And I think the value in finding whatever that next step is real. And if you do take that next step and then kind of work your way towards where you want to be, it really is a fantastic approach to get further down the road.
Couple product specifics. One, Don McAfee asked, what options are available for Encode 9?
So virtual court is tied into Encode 9. So if you wanted to extend the reach of the court and you're on Encode version 9, virtual court ties directly into that. And it's really cool. The virtual court runs in AWS, but it connects back to and points to your system, whether it's on-prem or whether we're hosting it at Tyler. So one, that connectivity is there. Also, the case resolution tools that we talked about, the Insight product, being able to tie those payments and things back to the system, those are also available to you on version 9. As we move forward, we're also making the transition to the web and working on a new version, a new interface that will run in the browser. All of this will be packaged up and be connected or connectable to that version as well. So you know that moving forward, you'll be taken care of also.
Jennifer Johnson had inquired what courts are using your virtual courtroom program. I did have one response that Del Rio is, but I didn't know if you had any
Yep.
others that were.
Yep, Del Rio is one of them. In fact, in some of the examples that we read through earlier, we shared some. We have about 53 customers that are currently using the application. So Del Rio was one, Portage, Wisconsin, Little Elm, Texas, Newton, Kansas. Those were some of the examples that we shared. Springfield, Oregon is one of them. Kind of, we have a really good broad reach across the country of customers that have kind of been early adopters of that. We've got, as I said, about 50 or so that are currently using it, about 140 that have expressed interest in, and will be on their way. So it's a great time to look at it, see if we can provide you a demo or show you a little bit more of what Virtual Court does if you do have interest.
Well, there's Michelle at the city of Elkins in West Virginia is interested in some add-ons. So somebody contact her. She's on Tyler 10.
Will do.
So you definitely got some interest here today.
Thank you, Michelle.
And obviously, I think you touched on it here with your list of them, but Aaron had asked, is the virtual court program available now? And I assume
it is.
It is a yes.
It is. In fact, it's interesting. When we first started building Virtual Court, the pandemic hadn't happened. So we were entirely going after the convenience factor. Then when COVID hit, it was much to our surprise, we found ourselves ready to offer it at that point. So it was wonderful timing. It's available now. You can definitely take a look at it and adopt it if you'd like.
So we do have, what about tribal courts? Do you have any tribal courts on board?
We do from a case management perspective. I'm not sure on the virtual court option if we have any of the tribal courts signed up, but we'd be happy to follow up on that question and reach out with an answer.
Joe Tomasino would like to know what other case types can be used with the virtual court.
That also a wonderful question. So, and I think it's an important distinction, and I'm sorry for not bringing it up sooner. Virtual Court works with our Encode version 9, version 10. Virtual Court is also being integrated with our Odyssey platform. So any of the civil cases, criminal cases, many different case types will be accessible, and you'll be able to process those utilizing Virtual Court. We're in the integration right now, the integration process with Odyssey, so that's coming soon, but it will definitely be part of what we offer.
Are you hearing that a lot of other courts are planning to keep a remote hearing option?
Yes, in fact, it's kind of been exhilarating to hear the feedback that we've gotten. Obviously, the majority of courts are still conducting things at the courthouse, and we appreciate that immensely. That's the core of our business, is what we do there. But we're also extremely excited at the response that we've heard from our customers, the success that they're having in conducting these online hearings. Just not to emphasize Judge Bain's experience, but that community center thing is transforming what they're doing as far as taking the court outside of the courthouse. And I'm so impressed with what they've done there, and kind of look forward to seeing many more of our customers adopt similar practices in reaching out to their citizens.
Okay. Don McAfee was asking, is the pricing for virtual court different for Encode 9 and 10? I would assume that'd be an individual reach out, but I didn't know if you had any general information.
Individual reach out, really in general, no. It's just the size of the court, the size of the jurisdiction that you're in, just like our Encode licensing is considered.
I don't show, oh, one more new, oh, I just got a thanks. I don't show any additional questions. Let me scroll through here just to verify that I didn't miss one.
Excellent.
That has been all the questions that I have seen through chat and question and answer. Is there any additional information, Riley, or stuff you want to add on while they take another moment to toss it in if they have a question?
The only thing I wanted to say is just to express my appreciation to all of you. I can't emphasize it enough, and I hope you know how sincere I am when I say I love working with courts across the country. I love what you do. It's such a critical piece of what we have in this country, and it's so humbling for us to just be a small part of that. I am thrilled. I'm excited about what our customers do with the software that we create. In so many ways, we'll create something to do a certain purpose, and then customers will find 5 or 6 other ways in order to use that feature or that functionality. It just makes me excited to work with you every day. I think in closing, as I emphasize this, and before I hand it back over to you, Jeff, for the announcements, in closing, whether it's Tyler Technologies or another vendor, there are so many tools that are out there, so much that is available to you. I just encourage you to look at what that next step might be. If it happens to be Tyler, we would love to be your partner and have a lot of experience in doing that, and have some resources that we can tie you into if you want to ask more customers, just like you've done today, for feedback or for how their experience was. So thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the questions. Jeff, any other questions before we pass it off to you?
There has been one that's popped up that I think you'd like to address. It says,
Okay.
I found that the system we are using now caters to larger courts. We have a smaller court and it ties up our systems. Do you separate the types of courts you have?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, so we have to, as a vendor, we have to optimize our systems to have the single user or the 500, 1,000 user agency or more. So we are continuously stress testing and looking for performance ways that we can find to make the system more performant in some of those circumstances. So if it's a really large jurisdiction, we're talking thousands, we do put it through some stress test tools. We do put it through the ringer in our tests to make sure that we can have so many concurrent users that are online and are using that at a time. We also scale that down to the single user to make sure that their experience is a positive one. When it comes to our online tools, really the only buffer that, or the only issue that we could potentially see is like you have with any of your internet services. Like if you're streaming Netflix or something, if you have a low bandwidth or a very small internet connection, sometimes that can have an issue on that connectivity. We do all that we can to maximize the bandwidth that you have and to utilize that in the most efficient way that we can, and try and get out ahead of some of the caching and things that we can do. But it is a potential burden and something to consider as you're looking at different systems and different solutions.
That is perfect, Riley. I appreciate your time today. I don't see any other additional questions. I do want to personally thank you especially, and Tyler. You've been great partners with NACM over the many years. As Riley mentioned, they will be at our annual conference in San Diego, July 11th to the 15th. They do offer, they will be at the vendor fair there in San Diego. The following conference, again, live in person on both of these. We will have a virtual option on the San Diego one as well. But if you can't make us in July, look forward to Bellevue, Washington in February. It's just outside of Seattle. It's a great area from what I hear. So if you are not a NACM member and you're participating in today's webinar, we encourage you to consider membership. NACM is the largest organization of court management professionals in the world. In addition, providing quality education at conferences. Your membership will have access to podcasts, webinars, publication guides, and other materials that inform members about best practices, innovations, and issues affecting courts today. NACM also provides a forum for working with other colleagues in the profession to improve the administration of justice. Join NACM at nacmnet.org. Information about NACM and more can be found at nacmnet.org. For more information on Tyler Technologies, they can be found at tylertech.com. A recording of today's webinar will be available on NACM's website via the member portal. On behalf of the National Association for Court Management and Tyler Technologies, thank you for joining us today, and have a superior rest of your day.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you all.